Thank you for tuning in once again, everyone, to the Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio channel. I'm your host, once again, Jerry Avalos, bringing you all the news and information major media does not want to cover, apparently. We are honored today with an awesome guest who's just full of all kinds of great information and intriguing history that's part of our forbidden history that he's come to share with us, and that is Stewart Swerdlow. I'm sure many of you out there are familiar with his work and a little bit of his story. But we're going to get into all kinds of interesting things here today, including things like the Montauk Project and mind control programming, and I'm sure quite a bit of other things because there's just so many things that Stewart can talk about. So, Stewart, welcome to the show, and how are you today?
Fine. Thank you, Jerry, for inviting me. Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, like I said, we're definitely honored to have you, and I'm sure a lot of people are very excited to hear what you have to say today. For those of our listeners who might have just been recently introduced to you, maybe tell us a little about yourself and where you came from.
Okay, it's a little bit of a long story, but I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. Basically, if I go back a little bit in time, my great-uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union, and my grandfather was sent to the United States in order to help found the Communist Party and to entice workers to come back to the Soviet Union, the so-called paradise. And my grandmother was a Soviet spy in World War II. So I have a little bit of a sordid background, but I do like to tell the listeners that, at least in World War II, to remember that the Soviet Union and the United States were on the same side. So because of that family history, my family was monitored here in the United States very closely. My father was taken into use in underground areas in El Paso for work for the government. And I also, because of that background, was used in government experiments, especially Montauk Project from 1970 to 1983. So that's generally how I came to do my work during the time in the Montauk Project, those 13 years, because of the microwave and the ELF bombardment of my body, and because of the other manipulations they did genetically, I was left physically blind so that all I could see were energy fields, colors, archetype systems that generated from hyperspace. And the point of that was they were trying to create a person who could see into other realities without the use of a device. So in other words, they wanted the person to become the device. And this also involved time travel experimentation, esoteric weaponry, weather control, all different kinds of electromagnetic experiments that were conducted at the Montauk Project. And so when that crashed in 1983, it was kind of like having a plug pulled out of the wall and everything falling out of you. For most of my life, I really had no concept or idea on how to blend in or fit into the normal society. So I had a lot of difficulties, and still do at times, but I do manage to function, and that became an anomaly in itself because from the government's perspective, I shouldn't be able to function at all. And so they were always very interested in watching me, studying me, and they still do keep an eye on me. And it's kind of a battle that we have back and forth between us. And so I felt if you have lemons, you're going to make lemonade. And so I took all of the work that they taught me how to do and used it for a positive direction in order to help people. The government used the work to control people and manipulate them. And what I tried to do is to deprogram people, help them to understand their mind patterns, use their protection techniques, open up the 90% of the brain that they are not using and the 97% of the DNA that they're not using, so that you can become the whole and complete person reintegrated that you are supposed to be. And that basically is what leads me to my current lifestyle and my current life and work, which is to go around and help people as best I can and in any way that I can.
Awesome. That's definitely a noble endeavor, and I definitely appreciate the turning the lemons into lemonade attitude for sure. We try to put a positive spin here as much as we can on Universal Truth Evolution, knowing that there's some deep dark stuff that goes on, but there's also the other stuff too. So,
Right.
it's very, very intriguing. And so the Montauk Project. I'm sure a lot of our audience here is probably fairly familiar with it, so I'm going to jump into certain parts of it. But so the chair, were you involved with that chair then that's reported about that they use to look into different things or create portals and such?
Oh, yeah, the Montauk Chair, which is very famous from the Montauk book series, was actually from the technology from Sirius A. That was not really human technology. It was either given or exchanged to us from Sirius A. And the psychic that was used on that chair most of the time was Duncan Cameron, as the audience may know. And I personally did not use the chair or was a target of the chair, but I was used to help boost the energy of the main psychic so that there were several people whose energies are very powerful, and they enhanced the use of the chair's occupant, if you will, kind of like a battery backup for the person. And sometimes we would be in that room, and sometimes we'd be in other locations, depending whatever the necessity was. But that chair was a technology that has been extrapolated upon since that time. It's amazing to think that the Montauk Project actually ended 27 years ago. So you can just imagine how much more of an advancement they've made since then.
Yeah, I'm sure we can only imagine here, especially hearing the stories these days from whistleblowers like Aaron and such. And that's very, very intriguing. The chair, because I'm a fairly visual person. I'm an artist by trade. We never get a description of what it looks like. Does it look like any other chair, and where were you situated in relation to this chair? Were you guys configured in a specific arrangement, and was that on purpose if you were? Things like that is what I'm curious about.
Okay, the chair itself, if you can imagine kind of a super modern dentist chair, almost like a lounge chair, but only more metallic, of course, where the body would go on it was padded. And around the head area, there was armrests, by the way, on either side, and on the head area were these protrusions that would come out to either side of the temple of your head. So there'd be a left and right protrusion, and then there would be another piece that would come up over the top that would connect to your crown area of the head. And the hands would go into these slots on the arms also. All of the person who was sitting on the chair would be hooked up to electrodes and other types of connections in various parts of their body. I don't want to be too graphic about it. It depended, of course, upon what they were intending to do. If it was opening up a vortex, if it was just scanning a mind, if it was just as a foray into some dimension or alternate reality. There were so many different possibilities that were used by that chair. And so the boosters, those of us who were designed or groomed to connect and enhance the main focus of the chair, sometimes we would be sitting or lying directly in front of it or to the sides. But for the most part, and I would say more than 60% of the time, we were in other locations, and those times we were not together. So in other words, all the boosters, the boys who were used as boosters, were not all together. Very often, they did not want us to know what was going on. We would only be told, to boost the person in the chair or to think of the chair and the energy, and we were not told what the reason was or what the experiment was for. So very often we would be put in a drug-induced state or an electromagnetically induced state in some compartment. And when I say we were in another room, it's not like we were in a bedroom or a lounge area. We would be like almost in a cylinder or a small compartment, you can think of it almost like a deprivation chamber or even a decompression chamber, that kind of a facility. And we would be strapped down into our chair, which was not quite like the Montauk Chair, but it was maybe a reduced version of it. And the only purpose of that chair was to take our energy, almost like a magnet, and suck it out of us, directed by our own minds. And then it would be downloaded into a computer where it would be amplified and used either with the chair that the psychic was in or sent into a transmitter of some sort.
Interesting. So I remember in accounts from Dan Burrish when he talked a little bit about how, I believe he's talking about the same chair, he was saying how it has to be tuned to whoever's using it, their brain waves. Is that something that you can corroborate, or is that something you're aware of?
Well, again, it was Sirius A technology, and most of their technology connects the brainwave or mind patterns of the occupant to the technology of the chair. So, for example, if you're thinking of an apple, that's what would be manifested energetically by the chair in some astral way, or even sometimes physically manifested. But it did attune to the mind pattern of the people who were using it. And that is why there was such a limited number of people that were allowed to be on the main chair, because they wanted the chair and the user to develop this energetic relationship so that it would be very easy to use. In a way, you can say it's almost like, having your toothbrush that really only you can use because, it's used for your teeth, and if someone else uses it, it's not going to be so good. So it's kind of like that, or having a glove that fits your hand and no one else's.
Gotcha, okay. And the other thing that really intrigues me too, just hearing more about the some of the technical side, I guess, is this energy that they were harnessing from people like you. Like, what is that energy? Is that just cognizant energy? Like, is it literally just brain waves? Like, or is it electrical? What energy do you know? Like, that are they utilizing? Like, how's that work?
Well, the bottom line of it is, and what we learned and what they learned, is that there's really only one energy in the whole of existence, and that is the God mind energy, is the pure thought or hyperspace energy of God mind and all of creation. And as that energy filters down into physical reality, it takes on different forms, but that ultimately it's really the same thing, and that is it's a frequency of electromagnetic energy. And depending on the numerical frequency or vibration rate that you use of that energy will give you a different manifestation of whatever you're looking for. So you really had to know a formula of energy so that you knew if I vibrated or used this calibration, this is the result that I would get. It's really a very ancient information. The ancient humans even knew about it, but alien technology uses it almost exclusively. So it's really mind. It's thought, and thought can be measured, of course, with electroencephalograms. We know that people have brain waves in their thinking, and we can measure that. So it's that energy that's emanated from the mind, and that can be captured and stepped up and transmitted, just like electricity, because it really is a form of electricity.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's to me, like I said, it's fascinating seeing how these quote unquote subtle energies are amplified in a sense, or tuned, shall we say, to this reality. I have a question actually from our audience. Wondering if there was a form of crystal or living crystal that was used to collect this info that you're aware of.
Well, what I knew of in those days, they had what was called Cray computers, which in those days were the supercomputer of the time. The alien technology did use crystalline formations, You can say that they were growing in some respect or living. As a matter of fact, you've heard during the space shuttle experiments, they grew crystals and they made, it's kind of like a living crystal, and that's kind of where they got it from, alien technology. So yes, there were crystalline structures in some of the computers, not all of them, but in the alien technology there were these crystalline structures, and I do feel that most of the scientists did not know or understand how they worked or how to use them. Of course, now, so many years later, I know that the government has almost perfected this kind of technology, and they have their own, but back then it was kind of mysterious.
So if you say they've perfected this technology, what do you think some of those applications, or what have you heard some of those applications of their own brand of this technology is used for now?
Well, they do have now these new laser weapons that they use that employ these crystalline technologies, and I know even in medical science, in conventional medical science in the last decade, they've been using these crystalline structures for lasers and other type of equipment. Basically, they're using it across the board in almost everything, and I feel like maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, your personal computer, your laptop, whatever they come out with then, is going to be basically designed on crystalline structures instead of the circuit boards and little discs that they have now. So we're going to see that morphing into what we would now consider to be alien technology.
Interesting. Yeah, and I find it really fascinating how we're seeing technologies in a sense starting to kind of come together, as well as we're seeing just in the conventional research in CPUs, how you see that progression towards getting closer together with all they're already using crystals to already, but they're just getting closer and closer together, and so yeah, that leap you can see is just on the verge there too.
Well, in addition to that, and I've written about this actually a couple of years ago, the Israelis are devising a computer system that actually uses human DNA, because they found out that the human DNA structure can hold more information than any computer chip that they can manufacture. And so this is also something that's very alien in design, because, as you may have heard, sometimes the vehicles, the spaceships, UFOs, whatever you want to call them, they're actually living entities. They're not only devices, but they're alive, and they have their own DNA. And so we're going to see computers that have DNA operating them, and then the question becomes, is the computer alive? Does it have rights?
Exactly. That's why I made that comment of that's awesome, because it's like, because to me, this is just my own personal belief, but I think that everything does have a consciousness in one way, shape, or form, and the more we honor that, the more the universe honors us. And so when we're forced with that kind of issue of like, hey, this thing has a DNA, my laptop now literally has a persona in a sense. How am I going to deal with that?
Well, that's right. That's right. It kind of reminds me of that movie I, Robot that was out a few years ago. And is cyborg alive? Is it a person? These are questions that will have to be answered.
Yeah, absolutely. And like one of the other subjects that really intrigues me on all this is the AIs that have reportedly been developed that are very sentient. And anything about that? Is there anything that you know about that?
Well, yeah. As a matter of fact, I was going to say the technology that they admit to having, or I should say, the technology they release to the public, is actually not what they have for themselves. The government has technology which is literally centuries ahead, if not more, than what is released to the public. So they talk about creating robots. I know in South Korea and Japan they've created these robots in the shape of human bodies that actually have skin that you can feel and touch and actually looks human. And that's just what they're showing you. But I know that they have already, long time ago, created cyborgs, or AIs as you call them, that you couldn't tell if they're, they could be standing right next to you and you wouldn't know if it was a human being or not.
That's very intriguing. Just because, like, as we say here in Universal Truth Evolution, we try to bring to light these things that people don't think are real, but really are.
Right,
so,
exactly.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So the more accounts we get, the better.
Well, you know what else is that they've even announced this about 3 years ago, that there's a company, and I forgot where it is, it's somewhere in the United States, they're developing a chip that you can implant in a person's brain, and that chip will download all of the person's memories, thoughts, emotions, etc., so that when the person passes on, the family has this chip that will be removed and has the whole person's personality and memories and everything about them right available. See? So can you imagine that? And then if that's implanted in a robot of some kind, in effect, or if they clone the person and implant this chip back in that clone's head, they've had the person back again.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and I'm guessing that's probably what got I don't know if you want to call them grays, but that race that, like, Dan Bursch was talking about, had that degradation of their DNA happening because of too much cloning.
Yeah,
I'm guessing that's probably when those complications start rising, right?
Yes, but that will be overcome. In fact, it has been overcome privately, where there is no degradation of the DNA.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I figured there would be more to that story, considering, just being familiar with how, that time-space, the astrals, whatever you want to say, flows, that there has to be some reconciliation on the collective, like, awareness of what we call now. And then hearing the story through time, so there has to be some kind of resolution. So yeah, that doesn't surprise me, and I'm sure it's probably a very, very intriguing story of how that happened.
Yeah. Again, what they release to the public, that means that they've already completed it, and they just want to see what the reaction is publicly. If you remember, was it about a year ago, they announced that they had perfected teleportation of bytes of information, and that they were even working on transporting single-cell creatures, So if they're admitting that, then they've already transported, armies.
Yeah, it's already been moving around all over the place. What are the things that actually I want to talk a little about too is your sight, your vision. So were you then blind pretty much to the regular usual spectrum of light then? Is that how
I was what happened was they recalibrated my brain so that I could only perceive energy, so that the physical optical nerve didn't work other than shadows or light flashes. And so basically I could see we all really only see through our brain, but the eyes as a camera were not functioning. So they wanted me to perceive energy at all times, regardless of whether my eyes are open or closed, etc. And so that is how I was able to see. And you would not be able to tell that I was physically blind if you knew me, because I could, read, I could drive, although that was a little precarious. I would see. I did tend to bump into things a lot, but that's because when you're looking at energy, the energy sometimes goes beyond the border. It does all the time goes beyond the borders of the physical thing itself, so that when you're looking at an object energetically, you really can't tell the physical structure as much as the general energetic shape. So, for example, when I was driving a car and it'd be raining or snowing, to me, it'd be like all one massive energy. I couldn't see anything except this massive energy, because the snowflakes and the raindrops would have these energies blending together, across the whole field of vision, and I could not tell one from the other. So there was a difficulty for me. And one of the funny things was in California, how in California they have the traffic lanes have those little bumps and reflectors in the middle.
Yeah.
And so if you go over, you hit them and you hear the bump.
Yeah.
So that's how I would know how to stay in the lane.
That's awesome.
So the big joke was they would say I was doing Braille driving.
Yeah. So actually, my wife says that too. When you just kind of accidentally do that, driving by Braille. That's awesome.
Yeah. So if they hit a bump, you have to go the other way.
That's still really cool though that you're able to drive even in any capacity like that. It's awesome.
Well, actually December '99 has been now 11 years. I did have surgery that reconnected the optic nerve to the brain. It was a laser surgery. So I do have physical sight again.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So have you retained? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, but the problem was, when they took the bandages off after the surgery, I didn't know what to expect. I had no idea what I was going to see or not see. But what happened was, it was like an overlay. The physical sight was overlaid with the energetic sight, so that I saw both at the same time.
That's awesome. That was the question I was going to ask, is if how that impacted the energetic sight. That's cool. So yeah, it's very cool.
And that's how I do my work. When I work with energy scan, I look at a person's body. I just look at them, and it's kind of like doing an MRI at the same time.
Yeah. That's very cool. So that's very interesting. During the project with the energetic vision, was that specifically used at times? Like I know you said when you're reinforcing the chair was one thing. Did they have other things that they did with you or had you do?
Oh, yeah. One of the main things that they had me do, because I was not visually, sighted, and I was always literally in hyperspace, whether my eyes were open or closed, I was in hyperspace, a non-physical existence. Mm-hmm. And so what they wanted me to do was to look at the colors, the tones, and the archetype symbols that I would see in everything to come up with explanations of what they all meant. Because then you can devise formulas of putting the color, tone, and archetype together so that you can create physically whatever it is you want to manifest. So in other words, they would have me look at an object and say, okay, what color is the object energetically? What archetypes are coming out of it? And then they would know that's the formula for that object. And they do that. Yeah, and they would do that with organs. They would do that with animals, anything that you can think of. And that was one of my jobs. And that's why in my book, Healer's Handbook, I have in there a dictionary of all the archetype symbols that I remembered, and I put in there. It's one of the most comprehensive dictionaries of hyperspace symbols that there is so far.
Yeah,
so that's
awesome.
in my so that's one of the benefits that I got out of it. And basically any thought you have produces a symbol and a color and a tone. So when people say to me, well, how many archetypes are there? I'll say, well, how many thoughts are there in existence? That's how many archetypes there are.
Interesting. And so one of the questions I'm seeing on that subject is, with the formulas, does that include like frequency of maybe the appearance of these archetypes, or does that have anything to do with it even, or and how does that work really?
Well, for example, what we did was kind of backwards. So, for example, let's say we looked at an apple as an example. So an apple had a certain energy, color, and a certain archetype, and I would draw that for them, and then they would take that symbol and that color, and they would put that into the computer, and the computer would then backtrack that to a frequency variation or frequency vibration, so that they knew, okay, this vibration produces an apple, see? And then the various changes in the frequency would produce a different kind of an apple or even another kind of object. So it was kind of a testing like that, hit and miss to see, okay, this vibration produces this object and vice versa. That's how it worked back then initially. And then, of course, it got a bit more sophisticated, and they were able to, Jerry, actually, every word in every language has a vibration and tone. So that is how they can get into anyone's mind, by taking these frequency codes, transmitting them into any person, brain or mind pattern, and the person, hears the words or thinks the words and believes it's their own thought.
Oh, okay.
And conversely, because when we think we emit sine waves, brain waves that come out, those brain waves can then be downloaded and translated into words, so that you're thinking in a vibration, but those vibrations are the words you're thinking, and then someone sitting in a white van down the block can pick that up and say, okay, he's thinking about X, Y, and Z, because they can translate that into words.
Yeah, that's intriguing.
And that's why I find it almost humorous when people, when I have consultations with people and they say, well, I can't tell you on the phone, I don't want them to know. I said, all you got to do is think about it and they know.
Yeah,
you're not hiding anything. So you might as well just say it, because they already know before you said it.
Yep, and that's why the thing I try to point out, too, to our listeners is that how they've developed the technology, and here you're saying that you're doing this without the technology specifically, so therefore proving that you don't need any of that, and then for kind of showing that, the whole thing of, like, trying to be secret about stuff, it just doesn't work, because one way or another we're transmitting.
Exactly. But I will tell you a color code that your listeners and you can use that can block that, and that is if you go into a violet color, the color of an amethyst, and put it in and around your body, the violet color is a protection energy, and it filters everything, so that if you stay in violet, then it kind of scrambles the signal, and then they can't get it.
That's actually very intriguing, especially knowing that for the longest time, one of my dominant auric color was from the crown. Yeah, it makes sense.
And that's why the crown is violet, because if you think of your body as an energy bottle, and the crown is the cap, you want the cap to be on securely, which would be violet as a filtering and protection of the energy.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why our chakras are that way.
Yeah. That's something that definitely would love to get into as well. Some of the things you do in terms of teaching and developing these skills. Is that do you put on workshops regularly or? Yeah. As
a matter of fact, if the listeners would like to go to my website, expansions.com, we have a whole new website up now. There's a whole listing of my seminars, my work, my books, my DVDs, everything you want to know about hyperspace and programming and deprogramming. All of that is on there, expansions.com. And I go around the world, every year, and I'm hardly ever home, and I'm going around teaching, doing lectures, seminars, workshops, consultations. I'm always doing something.
Yeah, it's awesome. That's what we need more of right now. We need to bring more people into awareness of these, all of these things, and our own empowerment of realizing who we really are in terms of just divine beings and being capable of pretty much anything.
That's right. Well, when you realize that all we are is a portion of the God mind, and by definition, then we have the same attributes because we're part of it. You can do anything.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of the programming, how you're saying about as far as now the different thought patterns and symbols have now been decoded. Is that how that is applied into the general population programming through media and just the airwaves in general? Is that how that's done? Is it they broadcast out specific frequencies on ELF frequency or something like that, with specifically tuned to like whatever they've learned from this Montauk experiment?
These days, yes. Generally, what you said is, in a nutshell, what's going on. But, in the old days, back when they first started doing this in the late 40s, 50s, and 60s, they actually would have to physically take the person that they wanted to program into a programming session with the use of narcotics, trauma, torture, pain, in order to fragment the personality and open up the mind so that they could then put in whatever it is, subpersonality, that they wanted to put in, because they knew from the Nazi experiments in World War II that if you fracture the mind completely, it creates I should say a device, but it creates a matrix that looks like a cube that's 13 by 13 by 13. That's the structure of what the mind then takes on. And if you do the math, it adds up to 2,197 compartments or alter personalities that could then be programmed into subpersonalities or partial personalities or all kinds of different guardian alters, ribbon alters, etc. And that's how they would control the person. And then there'd be a trigger that would be programmed into the mind so that when that trigger occurs, the function is activated and the person goes into the altar that performs that function. And that's a very general, basic description. And since around the early 90s, early to mid-90s, they have become so sophisticated that they no longer need to physically take anyone into a programming session except for extraordinary circumstances. What they do now, because of satellite transmission, cell tower, microwave tower, television and radio, they can simply transmit these frequencies right in the airways, if you will, and it goes right into the person's brain, piggybacks their thought pattern and hooks onto them, and you could be programmed while you're having lunch or walking down the street.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I remember when I really started getting heavily into researching a lot of the the hidden stuff. One of the things I had noticed is that when I started getting really sensitive to a lot of things, like when TVs were on. I was already kind of sensitive to it, but and just other things. I noticed that I would start getting headaches, and I'm just like, dude, what's going on here? Then so the more I started researching, the more that made sense. It's like, there's something they're trying to cram something in there, and it's just not working. And so
right, and that's true, because sometimes there's side effects when they overdo it, and it could be headaches. You can get nauseous, body aches and pains. You could even die. Stroke, heart attack. A lot of things can happen.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Trying to push things in the wrong way, so to speak, and I don't think people realize that that sort of mind manipulation techniques are at the heart of all advertisement. So they train your eye, they train your ear to do what they want you to do, and so that's how they already got you there. So then if you piggyback stuff, which they've been caught throwing subliminals in things, even just on the more simplistic scale, shall we say. So it makes everyone think that they wouldn't do something like that.
Well, yeah, even large corporations have admitted, like, for example, Coca-Cola admitted that their Coke vending machines transmit an ELF to make you think you're thirsty when you pass by that machine, so you want to buy a Coke.
That's so messed up.
Yeah, and even the arches, the golden arches of McDonald's transmits a signal that makes you feel hungry. They've admitted this.
Yeah, because there wouldn't be no reason why not to, because there's no law against it. So I'm sure that's how how Stephen Bassett talks about the whole ET embargo, and how there's no law against covering up ET stuff, so that's why they get away with it. So yeah, that's why we gotta work hard to bring the awareness, so everyone knows. It's like, no, you're not crazy. Really, there is a reason why that you want McDonald's, even though you really shouldn't eat it.
Yeah, and see, the government promotes this for certain types of food and drink that they know are not good for you, because some of these foods and drinks that are out there, all these chemicals and garbage that are in them, they actually create or put heavy metals in your body, and then your body over time becomes like an antenna that can then pick up the signals much more easily. So that's why they want you to eat all this crap.
Yeah, that makes sense why we have so high of content of these heavy metals in a lot of the processed foods, especially.
Yeah,
definitely. And speaking of, since we mentioned outer space here, I was wondering if you wanted to talk a little bit about what was going on, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but the Kuiper's belt.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. But yeah, because I know you're saying that you're seeing. I know I've seen some of the images too of like these, huge cylinders out there and stuff like that too. So do you have any insight as to what that could be?
Oh yeah, that's one of my things that I do the most these days. The Kuiper belt it's a natural area that surrounds our entire solar system. And if you think about an analogy, it's kind of like a cellular membrane that would surround a cell. Well, our solar system has this membrane of the Kuiper Belt that surrounds the entire planetary and solar system. And it's a very vast area that goes it's beyond Neptune, and even the planet Pluto, as you remember, a couple of years ago they started to reclassify Pluto and say, well, it's really not a planet, it's part of the Kuiper Belt objects. And they started doing that when NASA started picking up all these objects that would be suddenly appearing in the Kuiper Belt. And there were so many of them, and they would report almost daily that there was this or that object, that after a while, people began to get suspicious, thinking, okay, what the heck's going on out there? And that's when, in order to divert attention, the astronomers and NASA said, well, you know what? Nothing new about it, because Pluto is one of those objects, too. It's not even a planet. It's a Kuiper Belt object. And they started reclassifying it, and then to this day, we really don't know what Pluto is anymore, because they won't, definitely give us an answer. But if you recall, in the last few months, the sun cams that NASA has, focusing on the sun, all these large objects were shooting out all of a sudden, and when you digitally enhance them, they look like huge spaceships of all different kinds of sizes, and they're going straight toward the Kuiper Belt. So we know, if anyone has seen my DVDs on simultaneous existence, you know that a black hole in one universe is a star in another universe. Stars are the exit point, and black holes are the entrance point. And that's how the various alternate realities and universes are interconnected. That's kind of how they breathe in and out with energy between one and another. And many civilizations out there have technology that is capable of penetrating those black holes and stars without damage, and entering in one and exiting in another. And that's what we're seeing amassing in the Kuiper Belt around our solar system, is a conglomeration from many, many different civilizations, not just from this universe, but from others. So obviously, they're very interested in what's going on here. I always make the analogy that the Earth is like the Iraq of the universe. Everybody says it needs to be liberated, and the evil rule is removed, but then they're going to take a piece of it for themselves. My opinion is, people are waiting for Space Brothers and all these, benevolent aliens that are helping out. I say that's a bunch of malarkey, because anybody that comes here has their own agenda, and they're up to no good. I don't care how wonderful they say they are to abductees and contactees. It's a bunch of malarkey. Everyone needs to leave the planet alone and let humanity develop the way it's supposed to develop. So that's my 2 cents about the whole thing politically. But yes, there's stuff going on out there, and for a couple of years I've been saying it. Nobody, no corroboration. Then just recently we found out that the Pioneer spacecraft is being blocked by some weird energy in the Kuiper Belt, and NASA even admitted that. Not only that, they said that the Kuiper Belt energy is also bombarding the Earth, and they're not sure what the the reaction or what the results of that is. Then, just was it a couple of weeks ago, they said, hey, there's this large dark object in the Kuiper Belt that's hurling comets and asteroids at us. I don't know if you read about that one.
No.
But basically, it corroborated everything I've been saying over the last couple of years on my website and in my lectures. Well, now they're finally saying it on the news. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on out there. You can look at it from different ways. My feeling is that they've come to remove the Illuminati from the Earth. But then the question is, what's going to replace it? What do they have as an intention instead?
Yeah,
I don't look at them as saviors. I look at them as something else. I look at it like this. when people say, well, what would you rather have, the Illuminati or these other beings out there? You know, a year or so ago, I was in Estonia, and there was a woman in Estonia we were talking to, and someone asked her, gee, what was it like? Who was better to occupy Estonia, the Soviet Union or the Nazis? And she said, well, that's like asking me, would I rather have a heart attack or a stroke? You know, the result is the same. You know, what's the difference? It's both not good. You know, and so that's what I say. You know, Illuminati, Kuiper Belt, you know, heart attack or stroke. What would you rather have?
Yeah, I think a lot of people aren't really aware of all the fighting that's going on out in space, it's not necessarily all just like you know, crimson and clover out there. And
no, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and so I've had my own insight into some of the fights, and so yeah, then I hear then you get the corroboration by people like Ed Grimsley, who now does the third generation night vision tours and has witnessed these battles now too, and even just within our own space, let alone out there, you know, more in the solar system. So yeah, I think that I'd agree with the assessment that right now I'm just seeing. I think I kind of. I'd almost feel like, yeah, I'm sure like right now there's a lot of vultures just kind of perched outside this planet waiting for the change and saying like, oh, what can I get in on? What can we get in on? So,
well,
yeah,
I think, you know, I think the Kuiper Belt group, and it's not just one group. There's, like I said, many, more than we've ever seen before, and groups we've never heard of before. And, you know, they are already influencing what's going on this planet. They've already shut down the Hadron Collider in Geneva. They've already influenced the elections in many countries. I believe, my personal opinion, is that the whole WikiLeaks thing was orchestrated by them. You know, I think that they're here to undermine the Illuminati by having the people of the Earth, you know, remove them for them. See, that's part of the plan. But what their agenda is a mystery. Only they know. Anyone who says they know what the Kuiper Belt beings are doing, it's not true. Even I can't say that. I can only say I assume they're here to remove the Illuminati, but no one knows why or what the replacement will be. But you're right. In Montauk Project, one of the things we learned was that the universe is a dangerous place. There's no love, light, and peace out there. There's more war out there than we've ever even heard of on this planet, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I can imagine. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think they're kind of mistaking possibility with like positivity, and because there's a lot of possibility out there, but that's the whole thing, is that there's possibility for both things. There's going to be really cool stuff, and there's going to be a lot of things out there that aren't.
Right.
So that's why I think it's. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's, you know, people think, well, if they're advanced civilizations, they must be really lovely, wonderful people. But that's not what it means. It just means they have better weapons.
Well, fancier cars. In a sense.
Yeah. Right.
But and it's because it's just going to be more of everything. So that's why, like, you know, I do sympathize with, or definitely agree in a sense with what you're saying in terms of like how some people pull out hopes into the 2012 moment when it's really not a moment. Get over it. It's everything's going to keep going on, but it's just going to, you know, we're going to see an amplification of all these things, and because it's just life. Life is
that's a whole other category, the 2012 stuff, which is all about really mind control and programming. It's nothing to do with the end of the world or, you know, things changing for the better. It has to do with the Illuminati's deadline for global domination.
Yeah, we know about their great unveiling and their second, you know, their fake second coming, and actually, honestly, even the Project Bluebeam concept I know is a hot topic right now. And actually, I was talking with Aaron about this, and he was talking with Alfred about this, and how we're all kind of seeing how they've kind of come to that point where they either have to try to pin something on a race, or they just have to make one up. So, yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on Project Bluebeam.
Well, I've talked about Bluebeam for many, many, many years. And it's a very old technology. In fact, I tell people that in 1962, the U.S. Navy was actually testing Bluebeam in Havana Harbor. They surfaced a submarine at night right off the coast of Havana, and they projected an image of the Virgin Mary in the skies over Havana, so that the communist regime, or the people under the communist regime, would feel that Mary is coming to redeem them and save them, and maybe start a revolution there. So that was in 1962. 48 years ago. You can imagine the technology advancement since then. And we have seen evidence of blue beam now all over the world. First of all, that Medjugorje in Yugoslavia was a blue beam project. We have seen it over Moscow. We saw it over Norway a few months ago. And even many of the meteors and comets that have flown by and supposedly were even photographed, those were blue beam experiments, because there was no crash, there was no debris, no one could find anything, because it wasn't real, it was a holographic image. They have developed it so highly now that a blue beam holographic image could be picked up on radar, it can produce sound, and it can even be felt to the touch. So they can project a person in front of you with blue beam, and you could touch that person and think they're real, when in fact they're a holographic image.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
If you just had to guess right now, speculate on if this was going to be rolled out, like this whole fake second coming, as well as maybe some fake extraterrestrial incident, do you think they would try to pin it on someone, or do you think they would just kind of fabricate a whole new species or something?
Well, I know they're going to first start with the staged alien invasion. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of already in process, and that's why we hear so many stories on the news almost every other day about something going on in space, some meteor that's coming close to the Earth, or, some object that's been seen. They're always talking about space. And so even the idea of objects being hurled at us from space, that's part of the staged alien invasion as well. No, I don't think they're ever going to show us these so-called invaders who are attacking the Earth, but they will show us the savior race that comes to rescue us from these evil attackers. And so that, of course, will be shown as the reptilians. And the reptilians will then say that humanity is their children, because we have, human beings have reptilian DNA. And so that will be the proof genetically that we are connected to them, and that they helped create our race, that they are the gods of the Bible. That's what they're going to show. And then, to top it all off, they'll have the staged second coming of Christ, who will be cloned, by the way. And he will come and he'll say that the New World Order is his new holy empire, and the new world religion that he will impose is something that everyone must follow. And of course, when they test the Christ DNA, it's going to match the Shroud of Turin, which has recently been re-verified as being true. And so here you have this guy who has the same DNA as the guy on the Shroud. Who's going to question that?
I think, honestly, I think a lot of Gen Xers like myself and those younger, because especially those of us who are putting the pieces together that recognize that, these same people have been in power for centuries, and so it's like, and if you think about they're consciously aware of trying to retain power, then it only makes sense that you would make elaborate stories through time in order to keep facilitating your control and mind control. So, and I think that's a lot of the group that's here is going to recognize that. We're just going to cry, bullcrap, bullshit. There's no way, because we know your tricks, and we know you guys you can follow the history books literally and see all of your names there. And so I think that's where it's going to start backfiring on them. But I don't doubt that plan at all. It sounds exactly like something that they would do, So, yeah, that makes sense about, not seeing the attacker, too, because then you avoid the exopolitical affair of having to blame whoever. And then it really they try to keep it, try to remain isolation, as much as possible still, and extending that. But I don't know. I call it hunch. I don't think it's going to work the way they think it is.
Well, I hope you're right. I hope that people do, resist it. But then I look at what's going on in the airports with the scanners, and people are just willingly going into these little scanners and getting themselves bombarded with radiation, no problem. They just do whatever they're told.
Yeah,
and I think that's scary.
Oh, yeah, and I think that one thing that I'm finding positive in the news is that there are more people reporting and voicing the fact that, there hasn't been any testing, that they shouldn't be, that we should do some extensive testing before even putting them in there. So we're getting that, at least, and it didn't take years. I mean, that's the other thing I think you could probably, I'm sure you noticed, too, is like how before, like a lot of these, when we'd be outspoken about some stuff, it'd take years, and now it's like months now at least. It's like, oh, hey. So yeah, hopefully people will start waking up, and especially in relation to this false flag opportunity, because like we've talked on the show about this, about how people really are just not buying the wars anymore. They're just hard sells. I mean, even North and South Korea right now, I mean, they're still saber rattling. I mean, today, the North said we'll start a sacred holy war, nuclear war against you, South, if you do anything. But what? Come on now.
So you have to look at that. Here's communist, atheist North Korea talking about a sacred war. Hello.
Yeah, I know.
What's that? So that's just media hype. This past August, I was in North and South Korea. I went to the DMZ, and I went to North Korea. And I'm going to tell people, first of all, it's not so difficult to get through. And second of all, they don't have the hostility, at least I didn't see it, that they're putting on the news now, just a few months later. So, there's something that's being hyped up there. It's a diversion, because that means they're doing something else in another place that they don't want you to look at. And so they create this little noise over here.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just out of any of your observations, is there any in the universe, shall we say, does there seem to be like one more dominant sort of presence, at least in this area that you've noticed? Won't say, I don't necessarily say like a referee or in power or just more advanced. Is there any race that you've noticed that is more in that role here in this area?
Well, the race or the beings that seem to have the best technology are from Sirius A, but they tend to be pragmatic in the fact where they just give their technology to whomever they feel is the best for them. Kind of like what the U.S. does with other countries. The Syrians, Sirius A, they'll give technology to the reptilians if it'll help them with what they want to get. So unfortunately, even that area is being manipulated to the benefit of a particular group, not for the benefit of others or the whole. And quite honestly, the real benevolent beings out there do not interfere because they know that it is not their role to interfere. Yeah. Humanity has to learn for itself. It's like the Chinese saying, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day, but if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. And so they're kind of teaching us how to fish by not interfering.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and that's one thing that I hear sometimes too. Is like, well, if there's benevolent beings out there, why don't they come down and help? And this, because they know that, like you said, you don't want to infringe upon choice, and that's in a lot of ways synonymous with free will, or what people recognize that, because it's really choice, because then it turns into a manipulation of sorts.
Right.
And so, I think a lot of people have to start understanding that, but that doesn't mean that at one point we won't have allies like that, but enough of us have to consciously make that choice to not go with the programming. So. Right.
Humanity has to learn things for themselves, otherwise they will not, it won't be permanent. They won't learn what things are all about. It's like you tell a kid, don't put your hand on the stove, and the kid, when you're not looking, is going to, burn his hand on the stove. And then I'll never do it again. So that's kind of what the benevolent beings allow us to do. They allow us to burn our hands so that we know not to do that again. And then, once we're aware, how to operate the world, then they can connect to us. But until then, we're too much of a liability.
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of curious. What have your direct interactions with extraterrestrials been?
Well, at Montauk, there were a lot. In fact, I don't know if you or the readers or the listeners have read my Alien Connection book, which was the last in the Montauk series. And in that book, I described all of the alien beings that I had been associated with or had seen at the Montauk Project. And there were, out of the billions that are out there, there was just a handful that I learned. I did see reptilians. I did see Rigilians. There were Vegans, Arcturians, Procyon. They're from all different areas out there in the galaxy. They all had an agenda. Were any of them better or worse than another? That's hard to say. There was a time when I was much younger, when I thought the Syrians were really nice. They seemed to know so much, and they seemed to be so spiritual. But as I got older, and I started to look at the things that they were doing and what they were providing, I began to realize that they were just as manipulative as the ones that I thought were bad. They just did it on a different level.
Yeah.
So, my opinion was they all need to stay away and let humanity develop on its own until such time that humanity is able to join with a galactic community.
Yeah, I can, especially considering the nature of the Montauk Project and what was going on in some of those circles, I can imagine it would attract some of the more unsavory characters too.
It did, yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. And not only did some of these alien groups provide technology that hurt humanity, but they also indoctrinated sexual magic ritual, which is a very big protocol that they use in order to enhance energies for programming or manifesting whatever it is that they wanted to accomplish.
Yeah, we're at the top of the hour, and we actually do have a caller, but what I might do is we can go ahead and take our break now, a little 5-minute break here, allow you to grab a drink of water, use the restroom, whatever you need to do, as well as our listeners, and then we'll come back and we'll get into some more outer space stuff. It sounds kind of fun. So,
okay.
All right, so yeah, we'll have about 5 minutes here, so we'll go ahead and play a little pumpkin poem again. We're here with our guest today, Stewart Swerdlow, talking about the Montauk Project, what's going on in outer space and inner space for that matter too. So, Stewart, you there with us?
I sure am.
Great. Well, there's been a caller waiting patiently on the line with their hand up for a little bit. Maybe you can see what they have to say if you don't mind.
Sure.
Great. Let's go ahead and talk to our caller. Let's see. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, so let us know who you are and if you have a question here, and we'll get right to it.
Yeah, my name is Michael. I'm kind of wondering what your direct experience is with extraterrestrials, if you've had, or I mean, from whatever contact you have with them. If you could share that with us, that would be great. I have a couple other questions too, but that's for now.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it earlier when I said I had worked with them at the Montauk Project. And in those days, basically what they were doing was observing what was going on. Some of them were providing technology. They also sometimes would examine us physically, would create, as I mentioned earlier, ritual that we would have to participate in. So there was a very wide range of experiences that I had with them. If you're interested, you can read my Montauk book. I described it in there in kind of detail. But most of my experiences, I have to say, were not pleasant ones.
All right. As far as the heavy metals, is one of them perhaps titanium? Because I've been seeing a preservative, I guess that's what they're calling it, of titanium dioxide in certain food products. And I'm just wondering what the heck that's doing in there.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, Stewart?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Okay.
got cut off there. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was asking about titanium dioxide, if you know anything about that, because that's in some food products. Is that one of the heavy metals, titanium?
That is one of the heavy metals. There's also cadmium. There's a lot of lead. There is arsenic. There is so many of them in there. And basically, what happens is it embeds in the cellular structure of your body and to the lining of your organs, and over time creates this shield, if you will, or field of the heavy metals, especially around the pineal gland area, so that it becomes a receiver. It literally creates a receiver that picks up the ELF and microwave transmissions directly into the body, not only the brain but all parts of the body. You become a human walking antenna.
Well, I have been kind of feeling a little sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies lately, or as of late. I'm not sure if that's one of the symptoms, so to speak, but I'm at least aware of it.
Yeah, well, that's very common. And I do recommend, if you are feeling like that, you can start off very simply by taking sea salt baths with Dead Sea salt. That will start the process of pulling out the heavy metals from the body. You should also consider going for an IV of chelation therapy, which will take probably several months to get most of that out of the body. And you also should take ionic foot baths, drink distilled water, that kind of thing. It's going to take a bit of time to download all of these toxins and heavy metals from the body, but you also need to not replenish it with commercial foods. You need to really stick to pure organic foods, nothing processed, and have a very strict diet of that, so that you don't put these things back in the body after you take them out.
Right. Well, I guess the other thing I was thinking about backtracking to what you were talking about as far as rights of computers. It's kind of an interesting parallel with what's going on here. I mean, with the way that they interact with us and whatnot. Who's to say that we're not in some way their computer system somehow?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. That's very true. Well, if you think about all the metals in your body, and perhaps other things that have been put in there, we kind of are cyborgs in a way.
All right. Well, that's pretty much all I've got. I wanted to ask those and put those out there.
Thank
no
you,
problem.
Michael.
Yeah, thanks for calling, Michael. Making a more interesting experience for all of us. So we actually do have another caller here.
Okay.
So feel free to stay on the line, Michael, or hang up and listen online. But I'm just going to put you on mute here for a second. We're going to check our other caller. Thanks again for calling.
No problem.
Okay, caller 212 area code. You're on Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio with Stewart Swerdlow.
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. I read your first book, Stewart's True Blood, Blue Blood. Thank you very much. And I believe it said in there, it stated or implied that even Christ, Jesus Christ, was following agendas set up by other, quote, maybe benevolent races. But if the message that he delivered is not to our best interest, what message of optimism can you deliver to humanity that comes from the God mind?
Well, that's a very good question, and the answer is that the benevolent information comes from within you, because despite programming and despite toxins and poisons being placed in you, they can never disconnect you from the God mind within, otherwise you wouldn't exist. So if we all do our mental work to open up that 90% of the brain, that 97% of our DNA, do your hyperspace work and connect to the God mind within each one of us, then we do not need anything or anyone else. We have everything we need right inside of us, and it can be the director of our life forever. So that's what I would say, to listen to what's deep within you, the foundation, the core of who and what you are, which is the God mind within. That's what I hope and aspire to, and to teach other people to do that.
Do you think that any credence, though, can be given to quote some of the spiritual masters like Jesus that we heard from the past, or should we just try to take the best from them, or should we put it aside and just go in the direction that you're mentioning?
Well, of course, that has to be a personal choice. I don't like to tell people what spiritual direction they should go in, but I will tell you that the New Testament, all the biblical books, if you will, have been rewritten. They're not the original information. As we know, the Piso family in Rome in 300 A.D. rewrote most of what we have in the New Testament. So the original words of the Christ figure are not in there. Some of them may be, but they're, shuffled around with a lot of disinformation in there. So by going into the holy books that are allowed out in public now, we're looking at rewritten works, things that have been overlaid with other material and changed. As we know, the Council of Nicaea did that in 330 A.D., so that the Bible has been stripped of much of the original information. So I cannot count on that as a guideline. I really feel that we need to go back to the original source. And in fact, that's why we're taking our trip that we're doing in June 2011 to the Waldensian territory in northern Italy and Switzerland, because they have the original information, and that's why the Catholic Church tried to kill them, because it was undermining everything of official religion. And so that's what my goal is, to search within myself for the information as well as externally in places in the world where I know the real, true information still exists.
Thank you. I take that to heart, and I agree with what you said. Another question, objective question. Was Christ representing other alien races? Was there any part of him that was directly in contact with the God mind and therefore expressing a true message from the God force, or was he still just representing mostly the agenda of other races, and what races?
Well, that's also a very good question, and I'll reiterate that no matter what is done to a person, you can never be disconnected from the God mind within. So as far as that portion of the question, I have to say that the figure, which real name was Emmanuel, he really did have the God mind within, whether he was manufactured or not, because that's the only way he could exist. But yes, unfortunately, there was programming in there, and anyone who reads the original Talmud of Emmanuel that was found in the Rezin in Jerusalem many years ago, that will tell you that several alien races were trying to divert humanity into a specific pathway. And that's why this Christ figure was manipulated the way he was. They were, some of them, reptilian. They were Pleiadian. There were Aldebaran involved. And there were also, at that time, remnants of Valyrian human civilizations that were all conglomerating together to perform this experiment on the Earth. And in the 20th century, when the U.S. government was contacted by alien races, especially the Greys and the Rigelians, those races said, we created your religions. We created the Christ figure. And they even showed images. You can't call them film because they were on crystalline structure, but they showed images of the biblical time and of the Christ figure that they had taken of what was going on back then. So the government then knew that religion was alien manufactured and for the purpose of control. And the Vatican knows this, and this is why everything is kept under wraps and secret. And they have tremendous amounts of information in those vaults underneath the Vatican, which we may not see in our lifetime.
What my final question will be, what was then the agenda that Christ was supposed to fulfill? Was he supposed to make us more respectful of authority, turn the other cheek, become more subservient, or what?
That's it. You said it right there. It was to make the population docile and controllable so that they could, if someone says jump, they'd say how high. And that's what we have today, isn't it? and the TSA says, I got to, feel your crotch, what are you going to say? No, then you're not going to get where you're going to go. If they want to throw you in a tube and x-ray you, you can't resist. So, yes, we have unfortunately become that race that they sought to create.
Was that also mixed in, though, at least with what made it dangerous, it was also mixed in with half-truths, such as going within, meditation, etc.? Would you still consider those good techniques to contact the mind force, in addition to what you teach?
Yes, and that's a good point that you're making, because as I say, it's disinformation, and disinformation means a lie sandwich. That means there might be two truths on the outside with the lie in the middle, or there might be two lies on the outside with the truth in the middle. So you get hooked in by the truth part, but the whole sandwich has lies in it, and that's what you're swallowing. And so that's kind of what the Bible has in it.
Thank you very much for your courage all these years. I know you've gone through a heck of a lot. I just want to say thank you very much.
Well, I appreciate that very much, and I thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling. And, that's very intriguing stuff. I remember you did talk a little bit with Carrie, I remember during your interview with her, about that Christ figure and how something about that there was one objective to try to assassinate him or something like that, too?
Yes, that was one of the Montauk Project's agendas or experiments. When they started playing around with timelines, they figured, hey, we could go back then and change everything so the outcome is the way we would like it to be. But what they didn't figure on is, if you do that, you're not going to exist anymore because you've changed everything, because one thing follows another. But what they also realized is you can't really change a timeline. By going back and doing anything, you're creating a new parallel timeline. So then it just becomes a question of which one will you focus in, because they all exist simultaneously.
Interesting. Okay, that makes a little more sense to me too. Like why you hear like some of the other like Project Pegasus and that kind of do similar things, and how you hear that some of the people who experience this have experienced mental breakdowns, and I can see how that would be the case, because you're very, very conscious of these parallel existence, and you're like, which one am I in now?
Right, exactly. Well, that's one of the exercises that I teach in my simultaneous existence seminars and DVDs, where you can actually go in to your own mind and look at your own parallel realities or existences to see what were the different possibilities and outcomes of your various choices. So, we can do that. Yeah,
absolutely. Myself, I was actually born a natural lucid dreamer, so I've always been awake in my dreams in one capacity or another. So I'm definitely familiar with looking into parallel realities and then having to ground yourself to a collective one.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, that's my story is kind of weird and wacky too, but another time. But so I definitely understand that whole, that what grounding really does mean something to me. You know what I mean? I totally understand what that means.
Right.
Yeah, because it's one thing when you're in a completely different universe, and then you're one next to one you're experiencing, and then you're like, okay, am I really awake now?
Well, Jerry, I'll tell you, Jerry, there really isn't difference between dream state and waking state, just the rules and regulations. They're both valid.
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing. So with your teaching and your workshops, so like so some of the deprogramming that you get into, what is there like areas that you focus on with that, or is it kind of like a general technique, or is it philosophy?
Oh gosh, that's a vast topic, and the listeners may have read my True Reality of Sexuality book and 13 Cubed and Hyperspace Helper, and I have a whole series of DVDs on mind control and deprogramming. It's a vast topic. It's a science. And yes, it depends on what programs you have within you, which ones are active, which ones are dormant, which ones need to come out first. And when you deprogram, you must go very slowly and very methodically and carefully. I call it I like to use analogies, and to me, deprogramming is like an archaeological dig of the mind. Just like if you were going to excavate a city, you can't just stick a shovel in and start digging. You'll destroy something underneath.
Yeah,
so when you deprogram, you have to go layer by layer by layer, carefully, and then you decide what direction you need to go in next. So there's a whole protocol on that, which the listeners can look up at on my site, expansions.com.
Yeah, great. Yeah, 'cause that's one of the things that I like to talk about on here too, is just presenting other, I guess you can call them modalities in a sense of reprogramming, because as you kind of stated earlier, that we are all really, in a sense, cyborgs. We are really kind of piloting these vessels from a hyperdimensional source.
Right.
So the more aware we are of how to, configure our box, so to speak, here, the better off we'll all be, and we'll all be likely to manifest, that future that we really do want, where people don't buy into the fake ET crap and all that stuff.
Right, that's right. And it's a good thing you said that, because most of the information out there about ETs is crap. It's New Age disinformation or diversions from the government. Most of it's not accurate.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love having guests like yourself on who have direct experience, because we need more of this information to be shared so we can get a fair assessment. Because I think a lot of some of the information that's presented out there on the internet concerning these races they're so, like some of the people who relay them, they're just so caught up in their own experience, and they're not kind of either, be it positive or negative, that they're not kind of taking into account everyone's different experiences here.
Right, that's right.
And so we really need to have more input on all the races, so that, like you're saying, that when the time comes as a planet of humans this time around, we can make our own decisions of who we're going to deal with and how we're going to deal with them in terms of space-faring races.
Right. And we have to realize that the universe is teeming with life. The government even recently stated just a month or so ago that they estimate there's 400 million Earth-like planets just in our galaxy alone, let alone the hundreds of billions of galaxies out there.
Yeah. Then just that recent report of finding that arsenic-based life just exponentially increased those odds of having intelligent life out there.
Well, that was a big clue.
Yeah.
See, that's a big clue about the staged alien invasion, because they're kind of letting you know that there's aliens out there that aren't like us.
Yeah.
See, that's how they're letting it out.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think it's interesting because people like yourself and others like Richard Hoagland have said similar things about this timeline, and that apparently it really is this all kind of, as everyone said. It was going to be the water, then it was going to be on Moon and Mars, then it was going to be a microbial somewhere, and now we're getting to that all bets off kind of area. We actually do have a couple more callers here.
Okay.
Take a couple of questions here. Let's go ahead and chime in the first call here. Caller from 310 area code. Welcome to Universal Truth Evolution Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah, how are you guys doing today?
Fine. How are you?
I'm great. I just wanted to run over a quick experience that happened to me and my, now ex-girlfriend. She had stayed the night with me, I guess this was about 3 months ago, and we both woke up in the middle of the night, but I was, really perturbed by something. Something had just woken me up. I don't know if it was a bad dream or what, but I went to go and touch her skin, and, it felt like nothing I had ever felt before. It felt like they were microwaving her, or it felt like something extremely strange where it was hot. It was almost like it was melting but not melting. I don't know if you've ever encountered anything like that, but I immediately, I had followed your work previously, so I did, the violet protection, so I can tell your listeners that it does for sure work. And, within a few seconds it stopped immediately. But, I mean, previous to that, I had tried to turn on my Reiki and do, that kind of stuff, and nothing was really working. It was really weird.
Well, that could very well have been a microwave pulse that was targeting. Was your skin hot also, or just hers?
Just hers, but I was, having anxiety. So.
Yeah, that's also very common, and that's a reaction to either an ELF or microwave pulse. But from what you're describing, it would seem that she was the target, and you were getting the peripheral, symptoms of that. Did she recall any strange memories or dreams or events at the time?
No, not really. And she's definitely been a victim of trauma, so it makes me, I didn't learn about any of these, traumatic experiences she had until, the relationship ended, but, it would make sense that she had, either been in some sort of programming or something. Her father was a psychologist, and I started finally putting two and two together, and I'm like, oh, geez, Yeah.
Well, if that ever comes up, you could do the green spiral staircase on that event and see what happened. That you can read in the Hyperspace Helper book if you have that book. It's the green spiral staircase. It's a form of mental time travel where you can consciously go back to that event and see objectively what happened.
Okay, great. Yeah, I do have that book, and I follow your work, and keep up the good stuff. I've also noticed, a quick side note, that my dreams have just become longer and longer recently, to where when I go to sleep, I've just got like movies, just like long, epic adventures going on. Do you think that's a positive or a negative, or do you have any comment on that?
Well, again, that would depend on what's the content of the dream, how you feel in it. It could be programming. It could be oversoul trying to tell you something. I'd have to really take a look at that.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys very much. And, we've also used the protection techniques for when, I don't know if you've woken up in the middle of the night and heard these weird pulsing signals or these like weird, they sound like ultra-low frequencies or ultra-high frequencies. It's kind of hard to tell, but it definitely works for those as well. So for everyone out there, always have that visualization handy because it works.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that feedback.
No problem. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you for calling.
All right. Bye-bye.
Yeah, that's interesting. This one thing, like how our caller was sharing about his girlfriend being targeted. Are you aware of this program of like, do they just randomly target people, like in a sense, or is there a specific reason why, even if they may not be tied to a program, do they do this on purpose to elicit something?
Well, they don't do anything randomly. Whatever they do is on purpose. Very often they will target a specific area, a city, a state, or some geographic location because of something that's being planned there. So they generally bombard the population of that area. Or sometimes they will specifically target an individual because every person has a unique set of vibrations that they can zero in on and target that person. And so if it's a pretty big bombardment, the people around that person can get the peripheral energy, feedback like this gentleman did, and have an uneasy feeling or sometimes even get headaches, nausea, that kind of a thing. But if you use the protection techniques, use the protection template that we have, I describe how to take care of these things, Brown merger symbol. There are frequencies you can apply to yourself mentally that will stop this. And fortunately, this gentleman knew how to use the violet protection, and it did help him. So there are ways to counteract all of this if you know what's going on out there.
Yeah, definitely. So we have another caller, so let's go ahead and see what they might have to share with us here today. Caller from 212 area code. How are you doing today? Welcome to the Universal Truth Evolution channel.
I'm doing well. Thank you for the program. Stewart, regarding health and healing, what is our potential or capabilities to heal ourselves, say, for example, from things like cancer or diabetes, and secondly, to even physically heal vertebrae or herniated discs?
Well, everything that you've mentioned or any other illness or condition can be corrected because we must realize that whatever we have in our bodies, whatever is manifested, we have created mentally. For an example, what you mentioned about cancer. All cancers are called from held resentment mind pattern over a period of time, and where the cancer manifests is a clue to the kind of mind pattern that's being held and resented. So these are things that you look at, and of course, right away people run to medical professionals and that kind of a thing, but I unfortunately have to tell you that the medical profession as it stands now is not designed to cure you. It's designed to cover up your symptoms and keep you sick, because if you get well, they go out of business. See? So medicines and surgeries, those are all crutches. Those are all patches that they put on it. You need to work on the mind pattern. No matter what the issue is, you need to fix the mind pattern that created it and replace it with a mind pattern that is beneficial to you instead.
Do we therefore then even have the capability to rebuild bone or cartilage tissue?
Absolutely. Bone symbolically represents support structure in life. So where you have an issue with the bone represents that kind of a support. If you visualize shiny copper on the bone for a minimum of 45 seconds daily, that will strengthen the bone and regenerate the tissue. You can also use warm castor oil packs over the area, take omega-3s, virgin organic coconut oil. There's so many things that we can do naturally and easily on our own that can completely heal the body.
Besides the copper on bone, is there anything that would heal the disc in the back?
Well, the shiny copper visualization will heal it. You can also go into a far infrared sauna and build up with that over time so that you're doing 30 minutes a day for about 6 weeks. That will also heal the bone tissue. There's a lot you can do. Ionic foot baths, as I mentioned earlier. But I think the best thing for the bone is to do the shiny copper and look at what part of the body is it located in and what mind pattern is associated with that needs to be corrected.
That's great common sense. And the last question I would ask is, are there any, besides what you've mentioned during this interview, is there any other message from God Mind that you would like to give to humanity in general, besides what you mentioned about doing your own self-healing?
Well, as far as message from God Mind, there's a gazillion of them, and they're all pertinent and needed. Basically, we are here in physical reality to learn that we don't need to be in physical reality. I explain in my work that this is an aberration in the thinking of God Mind for not taking responsibility of thoughts internally and then needing to externalize it so we can see it in front of us and then deal with it. That's what physical reality is all about. So when we take responsibility for all of our thoughts and emotions and correct them to the way they should be, then our life and our existence will be perfect in every way.
Great lesson. I appreciate that. Thanks again. Have a great day.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. You too.
Thanks for calling. Just a testament to what you're saying in terms of recognizing those thought patterns that create the condition. Kind of something that corroborates that was just released today in the medical news today, actually. A study from Harvard that suggests that placebos plus positive thinking may be enough to cure pretty much anything.
They had to throw the placebo in there, didn't they?
Well, they said it doesn't even matter though, because they said that in this study they said that they even told people you're taking a fake pill and you're going to be happy about it.
Right. So and that's just it, because basically it's the mind. So they told those people what to think, and the people thought those things, and that's what worked.
Yeah, pretty much. And so they say, they want to keep on looking into this, of course. But I think on the other end we know that this already to be true. So it's interesting that how that truth is being sort of sandwiched now, as the layers are pulling off.
That's right. That's right. That's why I say everything you ever need is already in you. It's just how you think. I use the analogy, if I may, that thoughts are like film, the brain is the projector, and physical reality is the screen. So if you don't like the movie that's playing around you, you have to change the film, which is the way that you think.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. In terms of, because I know like how some of these, you're utilizing visualization techniques. Is that part of kind of tuning yourself to some of those specific vibrations that you found over time working in the project and then on your own?
Well, visualizations, the mechanics of it is that you're using both the left brain, the logical mind, the right brain, the creative mind, and you're merging them via the pineal gland in between, which brings the two together so that you take the logical and the creative, or the physical and the non-physical, and then you blend it to manifest something out of them. That's what the visualizations do. When we are doing strictly meditation, we're basically centering in the right brain, the non-physical, creative, spiritual mind. When we're doing prayer work, we're centering in the logical, physical left brain. So we need to combine them both at the pineal gland, and that is why I teach my exercises in the T-bar balancing at the pineal gland, where you balance the left and right hemispheres of the brain and equalize them. And I'm not sure if I've answered your question, actually.
It makes complete sense. I guess I was just wondering too if some of those the imagery that I've heard kind of being shared right now, if some of those derive from when you're looking into things energetically and seeing the archetypes come off of them. Is some of that integrated into some of your techniques?
Yeah, actually, yes, because if you make a sentence, a hyperspace sentence of the archetypes in specific colors, basically you're doing what I just mentioned, and you're taking the hyperspace, non-physical energy, and pushing it into the physical reality to create whatever you need.
Gotcha. Very, very interesting. And then another thing that I had mentioned to you about earlier when we spoke before the show was I think our audience actually would be interested to hear about the incident in Israel with the UFO.
I'll answer that question. I just want to refer everybody out there to my video on that, which I have. It's on YouTube and it's also on my site. Have you seen it, Jerry? That video on the Israeli? Yeah. So in there, I explain that the story, as it was told, cannot possibly be correct because Israel is the most controlled airspace in the universe. I don't even think the Sirian star system is as controlled as that. And so there's no way any object could have flown across a border or be launched from anywhere in Israel without that being detected. So the only logical explanation is that whatever this object was, and they're saying it was an unmanned motorized balloon, which is a bunch of malarkey, that it had to have descended from above, from the upper and high up in the atmosphere, and descended straight down, so it wasn't picked up on any radar. And then it hovered over the Dimona nuclear power center, which is the most secretive place in Israel in the Negev deserts, where they keep most of their nuclear weapons, over 200 of them. And so that was shot down, and they're saying they can't find the debris. Well, where the heck could it be? You know, if they shot this thing down, I know they would have seen where it went. There was not that much places it can hide in the desert in Israel. So there's a lot more to that story than being said. And I even mentioned in my article and in my video that probably be pulled off the news right away, and it has been. There hasn't been a bleep about it since that time. So that tells me, my opinion is, maybe it's coming from the Kuiper Belt. Maybe there was some kind of alien activity over there that was from a source that was unknown to them, and they don't want to reveal that.
Do the powers that be have weaponry that poses a threat to these different races at large, or no?
Well, you know, I have to say yes and no, because a lot of the technology we have came from them. So It's kind of like if we give weapons to the Afghan army and then we try to fight them, well, they have the same weapons we do. The question is, do they know how to use it the same way we do? Mm-hmm. So yes and no. There are extraterrestrial civilizations that have amazing weaponry that we could not possibly fight against. And contrarily, we have weapons that are of a match to them. So it's a whole wide range of stuff.
Interesting. Who do you know of specifically of any of these races who might just have like just the most mind-boggling technology or weaponry right now? Like,
Well, I laugh because to the average person, if they saw what the American government really has, would be mind-boggling.
Yeah.
So the Syrians have this. The Aldebaran beings have it. I mean, and there's so many out there that we can't even name because we don't know what they call themselves. They have amazing weaponry, literally that can hurl a comet or meteor at the Earth. So that's how amazing it is.
Yeah, that's fairly substantial, I'd say.
Yeah, absolutely. But here's what I think is the good news. Good news is, if they really wanted to destroy this planet, they would have a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously they want it for something. They want to use it, not destroy it. So in a way, I guess that's a positive because, we're still here.
Yeah, and I think that really should be a testament to everyone listening now in the archives about, how valuable apparently all of us here are. Because
that's right.
So
that's right.
So yeah, we got to utilize this opportunity here and learn the things that you're teaching and what I'm teaching with dreams and stuff like that to really manifest ourselves in the best light we can, really, and the one we really want. So
right.
But yeah, definitely. And so with the whole incident in Israel, so you think that probably has that is probably more of an outside thing rather than figuring into this sort of planned, invasion incident or something like that. So you think this probably really was like an intrusion then?
Oh yeah, it definitely was, because if it was part of the blue beam or staged alien invasion, they would not have been able to shoot it down. First of all, and second of all, it wouldn't have been a story like that. Mm-hmm. They would have had an explanation. They would have had an ending to the story. Whereas in this case, it just pulled it. They just pull, and that's the clue. Whenever they pull a story and they don't reveal it, that means there was something up with that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then, so where would you think China falls into that with all the activity that was going on, day after day in China?
Where they closed the airports and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That I do feel was blue beam. And I think they were trying to. I think the Chinese have developed their own blue beam technology. They're very good at copying the technology of others. Mm-hmm. And China would love to have their own New World Order, and occupy the planet. And so I think they were testing to see how the reaction of people to these things.
Gotcha. Yeah, that reeked of military to me too. A lot of that instance. Mm-hmm. We actually have another caller here. Let's bring them on and see what they have to tell us. Hello, caller. You're on Universal Truth Evolution Radio. Hello, are you there? Hello.
Hey, is that me?
Yeah, that's you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we
can
hear
you.
Hey, how's it going?
Okay, hey, how are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, and
I had a
yourself?
quick question. I've read a couple of you guys' books, you and Janet. Great work you have. I had a quick question. Let's say for instance, you have techniques where you can kind of tap into, different parts of the mind and, your different realities and things like that. Let's say you tap into some of this stuff, and how can you shut it down? Is the grounding and the T-bar just, is that just sufficient, or are there, in case, certain things or whatever it may happen that somebody may not be comfortable with, or basically just asking, how do you, turn it on? Is there an on and off button for this type of stuff?
Well, yeah, that's why I have in all of my techniques, you will always see, I say put yourself in violet to filter and protect the energy, number one. And when you're done with the exercise, you immediately go to brown color in and around the body, because brown is a grounding and balancing. It pulls you back to the present moment and keeps you grounded and balanced at all times. So those are the safeguards that are built into the visualizations to prevent any negative circumstances from occurring.
Okay, great. Also, real quickly, because so you also mentioned that, certain frequencies are, I guess, like detectable by certain technologies. So with grounding also, kind of be able to, lower you off the radar a little bit, or
well, what I teach is like for ELF, bombardment, that kind of thing. If you use the violet protection with a mirror on the outside of it, so in other words, you're visualizing yourself in violet, and on the perimeter of the violet, you're creating a mirror facing towards the outside, so that anything coming towards you is then reflected away, and anything that is able to penetrate that mirror is then filtered by the violet, and then you remain intact. So that is a way to cut off the bombardment of energy coming towards you.
Okay, got you. Great. And how is this, I hear a lot of talk about, in the metaphysical community about the whole, what they call the Kundalini thing. And, I think that I was, just naturally had a certain amount of it, already raised to a certain aspect maybe, and of course, when you get older and, you start to get kind of locked into the system, I guess, you're more of your natural stuff, you start to lose it. But how does that relate to, the whole pineal gland? They basically explain it as, you raise your Kundalini up and it supposedly, makes contact or whatever with your pineal gland.
See, I've written about. Yeah, let me explain. I've written about that a lot, and I feel that anything that opens up or pushes Kundalini is very dangerous, and I do not recommend that anybody artificially or prematurely activate their Kundalini, because then all of your chakras will be open simultaneously in sequence, and if you're not prepared for that, it can result in both mental and physical illnesses as well as death. So I say, you already have Kundalini energy protocols and sequences built within your DNA, so that over the course of your lifetime, it will open slowly in a certain way to a certain degree. Not everybody is going to experience a full Kundalini activation in a particular lifetime. That depends on the person and their mind pattern and the needs for that lifetime. So when you force this prematurely, you're going to activate programming, illnesses are going to come up. That is not something that anybody should be doing. And I have all these groups that promote Kundalini activation techniques really are dangerous. And I think that, they're going to pay the consequence for that on their own because of the things that they're telling people to do. You have to use your logical mind. You don't give, the car keys to a Lamborghini to a 7-year-old, and you don't tell unprepared people to open up their Kundalini. See? So you just have to use your common sense, and you need to do things slowly and carefully, and realize if it doesn't feel good, don't do it.
Great. So I guess there's people that say they have the spontaneous one. So where are they? Excuse the term, but are they just screwed, or is there a way to kind of make the process more manageable? Well, I think I kind of may have experienced that.
Mm-hmm. When usually a spontaneous or sudden onset of Kundalini is usually done through programming or ELF transmissions. It's usually artificial. And that's what happened to me at Montauk, see. It was a completely bombardment to open up, because they know when they open you up, then they can program you very deeply and completely. As I mentioned, if you'd use your violet technique...
So how would you close down from that?
Sorry? What's that?
So how would you close down from that in case that,
well, once it's open, once it's open, you're not going to close it down. Once that opens up, that's it. so then you have to either manage it or learn how to deal with it. But if you use grounding techniques, you eat heavier proteins, you use frequencies like dolphin frequency, bear frequency, things that I mention in my books, then you're able to get a handle on it. You know, as long as you're in the frame of mind where you have some semblance of control over yourself. Some people go into Kundalini activation and they're just, you know, forget it. They're like they belong in a mental hospital.
Okay, yeah, because it's kind of it can be kind of sporadic at times, I guess. And when you think you're kind of more grounded, and then it's just some random type of experiences or something.
Well, again, there's no such thing as random experiences. Everything happens for a reason. Everything is controlled by the mind pattern. You know, if you feel that you're being activated through Kundalini to one degree or another, immediately put yourself in deep brown, take a sea salt bath, eat some heavier protein, send it up to Oversoul, do Oversoul work. There's a lot of things you can do to get a handle on it and control it and reorganize it for yourself.
Oh, okay. Thanks a lot, Stu. I really appreciate you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, thanks for calling. We do actually have another call. I'm going to try to get them really quick here. We have 4 minutes remaining. Caller from 917 area code, if you have a quick question. We're trying to wrap up here, so by all means.
Oh, yes. Hi, Stuart. This is Kelly. How are you?
Hi.
Anyway, I'm visiting my family on the west coast of Florida for the first time since the whole, whatever you want to call it's going on out there. And I just wondered where you stand on that today, because I've actually been, I've read a few of your books, and I do use your protection techniques, and thank you so much for them, because they worked instantly on a number of occasions when I felt like I was being bombarded myself. And, but I'm still curious. So you still think like Florida's toast, basically, like there's going to be a tsunami?
The Gulf is still leaking. There's still methane coming up. There's still oil leaking. That's why they're still dumping Corexit in there to keep it suppressed so it looks pretty on the surface. But you go to the beach and you dig 6 inches down, you're going to find oil, and that's dangerous even buried underneath the sand. So yes, I do feel all of the Florida Peninsula, all of the Gulf Coast areas in grave danger. Fortunately, in the winter season, the air from the north pushes a lot of it out. But once we get towards warmer weather again, it's going to be felt. There's going to be a lot of sick people there. You might even see it now. It's not a healthy place to be, and eventually there will be a big explosion under the Gulf, and a tsunami will wash over the coastline.
Well, thank you for, at least I'll feel safe here till the 30th when I'm headed back to Santa Monica. So anyway, happy holidays.
Santa Monica's not too safe either.
Well, I guess we'll have to head to northern Michigan.
Well, why not?
Thank you, Stuart.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for calling. Yeah, Stuart, we have about 2 minutes left here, so if you want to go ahead and promote your website or let us know about any events you have coming up, I'm sure our audience would love to hear about it.
Thank you. It's expansions.com. We have a whole new revised website for you to go on there and look. We are starting this January our Oversoul Mastermind group. That is detailed on the website as well, and we're also having a tour next June to the Waldensian territory in northern Italy and Switzerland, which is delineated in my newsletters, which are going out on a daily basis. You can sign up for that free newsletter. Sign up for it. When you go on the site, you'll see a little pop-up that'll take your name and email, and you'll get a free newsletter every day. I also have a monthly newsletter with a CD that goes out to answer all of your questions, and I do phone teleconference every month to answer all of your questions, and that's all delineated on the site. Gosh, there's so much out there, books, DVDs, seminars, every information you want to know about for health, mind, emotions is all on there. Expansions.com. Please go and check it out. It's really a one-stop shop for everything you need in your life.
That's great, Stuart, and thank you so much for all of your effort and your courage for speaking and sharing as you do. It's a great aid to all of us here in this day and age.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you once again. Thank everyone for listening. there and in archives. And tune in next week. We'll have some more guests on and bringing the news that major media doesn't want you to hear. So thanks again, once again, Stewart. It's been an honor and a privilege to speak with you these past 2 hours.
Thank you. Me too. It's been a great time. You're a great host.
Well, thank you very much. All right, everyone. We will catch you next time.